You think they have sex more than we do?
Oh my God. Like, ew, why are you thinking that? But anything is more than what we're doing, so.
Yeah.
It's like blowing up a balloon. It's like, it's getting there, and then it's like.
Colt is sitting in Courtney's parents' house, eating their food, sleeping under their roof, being cared for like a patient, and then he admits he is still talking to another woman. Not in the past, not before Courtney, right now. And across the ocean, Pedro stands there stunned as Sophie calmly says she is single. After the gifts, after the letters, after the trip. Single. So what are we watching here? Betrayal or delusion? Because on one side, Courtney is playing nurse, partner, and protector while Colt keeps a Brazilian connection alive. On the other side, Pedro invested time, money, and emotion, believing he was building something serious, while Sophie insists she never signed up for exclusivity. Two couples, two different dynamics, same uncomfortable question. Who misunderstood the deal? And this is where the illusion starts to crack. Colt says trust matters, yet he keeps Diana in his phone. He says he loves Courtney, yet he never fully closed the previous door. Is that fear of being alone? Or keeping a backup plan? Living under her parents' roof makes him look dependent, but holding a secret gives him power. That shift matters more than people think. And then there's Pedro. He believed the gestures meant commitment. $20,000 on a gift, weekly flowers, trips, effort. To him, that meant relationship. To Sophie, it meant getting to know each other. She says she was clear. He says she misled him. So who rewrote the story in their head? Because once expectations and reality stop matching, somebody always feels cheated. What makes this messy is that neither situation is black and white. Courtney looks generous, but is she ignoring red flags? Pedro looks devoted, but did he assume exclusivity without confirmation? Sophie looks independent, but did she enjoy the benefits while keeping distance? Two secrets, two assumptions, one roof, one island trip, and both relationships standing on ground that feels steady until one sentence flips everything. And when secrets collide with expectations, somebody always falls. The question is who hits first. Let's rewind for a second, because none of this chaos started overnight. Courtney met Colt at the singles retreat. There was flirting, there was tension, and then there was that freak accident. Colt breaks his leg, ends up in the hospital, and suddenly the vibe shifts from vacation romance to emergency contact energy. Courtney steps in. She visits him. She cares for him. And when the retreat ends, she brings him back to Florida, not to his own place, but to her parents' house. So now this new relationship is happening under mom and dad's roof. He is recovering. She is cooking, cleaning, helping him dress, even handling the parts of recovery most people would not volunteer for in month 1 of dating. On paper, it sounds romantic. In reality, it is intense. And when a relationship starts with dependency instead of chemistry, the balance is already fragile. Meanwhile, over in Pedro's storyline, the tone was completely different. No hospital beds, no ice packs, just grand gestures. Expensive gifts, love letters, flowers sent week after week. A $20,000 present on the first date. That is not casual dating behavior. That is future planning behavior. Pedro believed he was building something serious. So when Sophie agreed to fly to the Dominican Republic for his sister's birthday, he took that as confirmation. This is real. This is exclusive. This is moving forward. But Sophie had just filed for divorce. She was still untangling her last chapter. Emotionally, she said she needed space, time, breathing room. Pedro heard hope. She meant healing. And here's the tension nobody wants to admit. Money moves faster than emotions. Under one roof in Florida, dependence is growing. On an island trip, expectations are rising. Both couples are building stories in their heads. The only problem is, the stories do not match. And when fantasy and reality finally sit at the same table, somebody is about to lose leverage. Now, look closely at what Courtney signed up for. This is not dinner dates and flirty texts. This is medication schedules, physical therapy, helping him shower, dressing him, even handling the kind of personal care most couples do not face until years in. She stepped into full caretaker mode within weeks, and credit where it is due, not everyone would do that. She showed up. She made space for him in her parents' home. She made space for him in her routine. On the surface, that looks like devotion. But attraction does not always survive dependency. The more she nurtures, the more the dynamic shifts. She becomes the responsible one, the stable one, the one holding everything together. And he becomes the patient, the one needing help. That shift changes energy. Romance thrives on mutual desire. Caregiving shifts it toward obligation. And once obligation enters the room, chemistry starts backing toward the door. The physical intimacy stalls. He says he is in pain. He says his body is not cooperating. She tries to stay supportive, but insecurity creeps in. Because when someone who once bragged about loving sex suddenly cannot perform, the silence grows loud. She wonders if he is not attracted to her. He feels pressure. His identity took a hit. Instead of sitting in that vulnerability, he pivots. He compares her to Brazilian exes. He says they were more passionate, more wild, as if the problem is energy, as if her personality is the reason intimacy is struggling. That comparison says more about him than her. When someone loses control in one area, they sometimes try to reclaim control in another. He cannot control his recovery speed. He cannot control his body. So he critiques the vibe. He critiques her confidence. He reframes the issue. And that is when you have to ask yourself, is this love growing or ego reacting? There is another layer here. Crisis bonding feels intense. When you care for someone during a vulnerable moment, emotions accelerate. You talk more. You connect deeply. You feel needed. But intensity is not the same as compatibility. Did they fall for each other? Or did they fall for the closeness of a hospital room? Because while she is investing time and energy, there is a quiet detail sitting in the background. A name that has not disappeared. A conversation that did not fully end. And that is where this caretaking fantasy starts to look less secure than it seemed. Then the quiet detail stops being quiet. Colt admits he is still talking to Diana. Not a random old contact. Not a polite check-in. Someone he had a connection with before the retreat. Someone he admits he struggled to let go of. And this is happening while he is living in Courtney's parents' house, being cared for, being supported, being defended. His words say, "I love Courtney." His actions say, "I am keeping options open." That gap matters. Because when words and behavior stop matching, trust starts cracking from the inside. There is a pattern here. Emotional overlap. One relationship never fully closes before another begins. Doors left slightly open. Messages that continue. Threads not cut. It creates a safety net. If one connection fails, another exists. Now, to be fair, fear can drive strange choices. He is injured. He is dependent. He has no stable home of his own. Losing Courtney would mean losing comfort, housing, support. So part of this secrecy might come from insecurity, from not wanting to lose what feels safe. But fear does not erase responsibility. If you tell someone trust is everything, while hiding contact with another romantic interest, you are building on unstable ground. Courtney already struggles with trust. She has heard about his past. She is trying to believe he changed. And while she is wiping tears and laundry, he is keeping another emotional thread alive. And here's the question you have to ask yourself. If you were in her place, Would second chances still feel reasonable? The tension is no longer about physical intimacy. It is about integrity. Because secrets grow heavier the longer they sit. And under one roof, with her parents watching closely, there's not much space to hide. When that truth surfaces fully, there will be no hospital bed to soften the blow. Only reality. Now switch gears. Because Pedro and Sophie move at a totally different speed. Pedro did not show up with crutches. He showed up with grand gestures. A $20,000 gift on the first date. Weekly flowers, love letters, months of attention. That is not casual energy. That is long-term planning energy. From his side, the math makes sense. You invest time, you invest money, you invest emotion. The return should be exclusivity. That is the silent contract in his head. But Sophie never signed that contract. She is fresh out of a marriage. Divorce paperwork barely dry. She says she is healing. She says labels scare her. She says she wants to get to know him slowly. Pedro hears hope. She means breathing room. This is where effort and expectation start fighting each other. Because when one person is building a future and the other is rebuilding themselves, friction is guaranteed. Now ask yourself something honestly. If someone bought you a $20,000 gift and sent you flowers every week, would you assume you were exclusive? Most people would. That level of consistency feels serious. But effort does not replace a conversation. Pedro never locked down the definition. He assumed progression. She assumed exploration. And then the pressure builds. He questions her loyalty. He feels embarrassed after talking to her friend. He thinks he looks foolish. Sophie feels cornered. She feels rushed. So she does the one thing that resets the power dynamic instantly. And in one calm sentence, she flips the entire storyline. I am single. That moment lands like a slap. Pedro stands there trying to process it. After the gifts, after the trip, after introducing her to family. And Sophie says she is single. Calm, direct, no apology in her tone. For him, that word feels humiliating. Because if she is single, then what has he been doing all these months? He feels misled. He feels exposed. He even says he would not have invested so much if he knew she saw herself as unattached. But Sophie pushes back. She says she told him she was not ready. She says she never promised exclusivity. She points to her actions. She was not all over him. She did not claim him publicly. In her mind, she stayed consistent. So now the question shifts. Is this miscommunication or projection? Pedro may have heard what he wanted to hear. When someone wants commitment, they interpret signals optimistically. A trip feels serious. A smile feels promising. Effort feels reciprocated even when it is not defined. At the same time, Sophie accepted the gifts, the attention, the romantic energy. That creates emotional momentum. Even if she never promised a title, she benefited from the intensity. That part cannot be ignored. And this is where ego and autonomy collide head-on. Pedro is 33. He talks about marriage and kids. He is thinking long-term. Sophie is younger, fresh out of a long relationship that started when she was barely an adult. She wants space. He wants structure. Different life stages create different urgency. When she says she is single, she reclaims control. She sets the pace. He loses leverage in one sentence. The money no longer holds weight. The effort no longer guarantees position. And in that exchange, whether you agree with her or not, she walks away with the stronger stance. Once these episodes aired, the conversation online lit up. Viewers split into camps fast. Some people felt for Courtney. They saw a woman overextending herself for a man with a track record. They questioned whether she was ignoring patterns that have played out before. Others defended her, saying caring for someone during recovery does not make you naive, it makes you compassionate. Then there was the Colt debate. People pointed out that emotional overlap has followed him across seasons. The secrecy, the unfinished conversations with other women. Fans who have watched him before recognize the rhythm. Different partner, same tension. And when patterns repeat on reality TV, the audience notices before the cast does. Pedro's storyline sparked a different argument. Some viewers felt he tried to fast-track commitment with money and grand gestures. They questioned whether expensive gifts create pressure. Others believed Sophie benefited from the attention while keeping him at arm's length. What makes this interesting is how familiar it all feels. We have seen versions of this before. One partner invests heavily, the other hesitates. Assumptions grow in silence. Then someone says the quiet part out loud, and everything collapses. It raises a bigger question beyond these couples. Are we watching betrayal? Or are we watching people fall in love with their own expectations? Because sometimes the biggest shock is not what the other person did. It is realizing the story you believed was never fully shared.